So,
Today we're here with
and everyone pay attention to this story. It's a very important story. You're not going to understand what's going on. All right. So, let's talk about a story from the Bible. Has anyone ever read the Bible before, or at least some stories that are in the Bible? Okay.
Sometimes.
So, I'm going to tell you about a story in the Bible that has really nothing to do with religion, but everything to do with physics. Right? So, can anyone tell me what the people that lived in the disciples? So, do you know what group they belong to? We call them something that starts with an I. Israelites. So the Israelites lived in that area of the world. They still do, right? Around Jerusalem. And back then it was called Judea, right? Judea, right? And the king of Judea at the time was a very wise dude named Saul, right? His name was Saul, right? And at the time, the enemies, you understand that these people back then, they were fighting each other every day, left and right, just like this. They were fighting each other. They were going against each other every day. And this was BC times, right? Before Christ. This was in what we call antiquity. So, King Saul was currently at war with another group of people, right, that came from across the ocean in Crete. They were called the Philistines. They were called the Philistines. So we had the Israelites from Judea fighting against some invading Philistines, right? And the Philistines were bad dudes, right? They had the most modern military weapons, which means they had coats of armor, right? Overlapping plates of metal and leather. They had sharpened bronze spears. They had shields. They had javelins. They had spears. They had bows and arrows. They had it all. They were some bad dudes, right? And they were invading Judea, right? So King Saul brings his army, right, to one of the places where the Philistines are attacking, and they're about to go at it, right? But the thing about it is,
David.
yeah. So the thing about it is, though, check this out. A lot of the times back in the old days, right, the world's population wasn't like it is now. There's not a lot of people to go around, you know what I'm saying? And there's not a lot of, like, healthy guys, like, of fighting age. So you don't just want to waste them, right? So sometimes what they used to do was like, all right, check this out. On my side, we're going to pick our best dude. And on your side, you pick your best dude. And whoever wins in a one-on-one duel, that is who's going to win this battle. So we can preserve all these lives, right? Right. So the Philistines are like, dope, I'm in. All right, we're going to do this. So King Saul goes back to his people. The Philistines go back to their people. And the Philistines, they just part like the Red Sea. And this dude comes forward. And he's not a regular dude. He is a giant.
He's like 7 feet.
And y'all know that back in the day, because of nutrition and things like that, modern medicine, people were shorter than they are now. Like the average height was probably like this big. Well, Goliath, which was this dude's name, this dude was like 7 feet tall. So he looked like a literal monster, right? And he had all this armor on, big sword, shield, buff too, right? This dude was a warrior, a straight up killer. When King Saul's people, the Israelites of Judea, saw this dude, they were like, I'm scared. Yeah, no, not me, not today, I'm sorry, but no. So King Saul could not find anyone, not one person, to come out here and face Goliath, right? Well, luckily, in the very back of the army, back in the day, they used to have to travel with their food, right? So they had sheep to eat, right? Well, one of the young boys that watched the sheep, they're called shepherds. His name was David, yeah? So David is hearing what's going on, and he's seeing the situation. And to everyone's surprise, David steps before King Saul and says, I'll do it. I'll fight Goliath. And everyone just busts out laughing. They're just laughing. They're like, bro, this dude is like this tall. He weighs 90 pounds soaking wet. His job is to take care of sheep. You literally are wearing rags. What are you going to do against this dude? This dude is like bigger than a WWF championship wrestler. This dude is going to murder David. We're all going to have to witness the death of a young child in front of our eyes. So they were like, well, if no one's going to go, I guess David is going to go. So David, walks out to the middle of the field. And as soon as Goliath sees that, he just starts laughing. He's like, is this a joke? am I being tricked here, right? Is there something that I don't know about? Well, he just laughs, right? So he takes his shield, he throws it down, he takes his spear, he throws it down, and pulls out his sword, and he goes and gets ready to just one cut this dude in half. Just straight up gonna cut him in half, right? So as he's walking slowly. No, so Goliath is doing this. He's walking up to David. And David just reaches into his little pouch, and he's got a little string, right? Yeah. And he reaches down, and this place in Judea has a very special type of basalt rock. And it's twice as dense as any other rock. And they're very round, right? So they're very, very dense. They're very heavy, right? So this rock he gets, and it's only about this big, and he puts it in, yeah, and he puts it in this little pouch on this string, and he starts going like this.
He starts waving it around, yeah. Then lets it go.
Until it's going at about 7 to 10 revolutions per second, right? And Goliath had never seen this before. The Philistines were very curious about, like, what is this? Are you going to kill me with this really weird noise that you're making? But what he didn't know was precisely moments after he started twirling this around, he lets go of one end of the string, and the basaltic rock, that high density rock, flies at a rate of, we calculate, maybe close to 35 meters per second, and imparts an energy that is very, very similar to what a 45 caliber handgun would have done nowadays. And it hits Goliath in his most vulnerable spot, right in the middle of the head. It just blows his head clean back. Bam! Domes him. He's dead instantly, right? He falls like a giant tree that's been felled. Boom! So what David does after this, and this is in the Bible, he runs up and he takes Goliath's big sword, and guess what he does? He chops his head off. Bam! And this little shepherd boy picks up this giant head like this and shows it to the Philistines. And as soon as he does this, they all run away. They all run away. So what happened? Now, I want to talk about this, though, that people use this story to talk about how a underdog, right, the little guy can beat the big guy, right? But that's the wrong way to talk about it, right? David was not the underdog. David knew something that none of the Philistines did, right? David had knowledge, and when you come armed with knowledge, you can beat almost anything. Whereas people saw Goliath as too big to kill, David saw him as too big to miss. You know what I'm saying? His head's this big. He's like, I got this. Ancient slingers could have bullseyed people like Goliath from 200 yards away. And with a 45 caliber handgun cartridge, that same level of energy from 200 yards away, those are some of the most powerful people in ancient warfare. The Philistines did not know that, but David did. Right? How did he do it? How is this possible? What's the difference between just throwing a rock at Goliath and what he did? You're using physics, right? So that's what we're talking about today. We're going to talk about what's called circular motion. So on my loom today, you can see me walk through this entire presentation of what this is. But essentially, we're going to go outside and do it, right? So check this out. Here's my circle. This is what is moving in a circle, right? Here would be his hand. And this right here, of course, is the radius of the circle. When I do this, right, there is acceleration going on here, right? So there's two things that I want you to know today. This rock is going to have tons of velocity, right? It's going to have tons of velocity. And we call that the tangential velocity. You're going to learn this on my loom, right? But what is making it accelerate? It's this. It's this right here. This is the acceleration called centripetal acceleration. And that's what you're going to feel on your hand. This rock right here is changing directions. Changing directions is changing velocity. The acceleration going towards the center is going to make this rock go in a circle. So here it is right here, and this is its velocity at this point, and this is its velocity at this point, and this is its velocity at this point, right? These are all my tangential velocities. David knew exactly when to let go to stop accelerating it in order to make this rock go in the direction that would kill Goliath by hitting him right in the forehead. This right here is the velocity. Now there's tons of different tangential velocities. As soon as you stop applying the center-facing acceleration, that is when you get that killing power, right? So this is called something. We call it centripetal, and I will go over what this means. Centripetal acceleration. And we use A sub C for it, right? It's a special type of acceleration, centripetal acceleration. It means center pointing. The acceleration points toward the center of the circle, right? And I will show you how that works. We're going to go outside, and I'm going to show you how this works, right? This center pointing acceleration, it lets you do a bunch of cool stuff. Not only does it give you the power to create these ancient weapons that can kill giants, but it also gives some weird outcomes that you wouldn't expect, right? So I'm going to take a cup of water, right? And I'm going to swing it over my head 1,000,000 times, and not one drop will spill out of the water.
Of course not.
Not one drop.
It's because...
Why is the question? Why?
Right?
What's that?
Motion.
It has a lot to do with motion. It has everything to do with this, right? So when we go outside, we're going to have some cups of water, and we're going to swing it, and you're going to see that even though these cups, like if I stopped spinning it, it would fly out that way because that's where the velocity is. There's acceleration pointing towards the middle, and that keeps it firmly rooted against the board that we're going to be swinging it on. So everyone's going to get a chance to spin these water cups. We're going to do two things. One, we're going to see how many water cups we can spin. We can see who can do the most. Everyone's got to spin at least one, right? To know that this is real and I'm not making it up. And then we've got Goliath back in the room. I put a helmet on him, strapped it. You ever wonder why the helmet was on the skeleton?
Yeah.
Because we're about to try to knock his damn head off. It's going to be amazing. All right, so this is what I want. Meet me down by my room. Don't go out yet because we need to fill up water cups with water. I got the water cups down there. I got Goliath down there, and we're all going to be David. Everyone, by the end of this period, we're be out there for about 40 minutes. Everyone by the end of this period has to spin one water cup without spilling anything. And also, I want you to be able to hit Goliath in the head, just like David did.
I think I'm a legit David.
Right? We're going to see who's a legit David. And remember, this velocity is what you're trying to achieve by this center-facing acceleration. Those are the two key points. When we're done with that, we're going to come back inside, and we're going to learn how to calculate centripetal acceleration using my new formula that's on the formula chart. That's what this quick check is over. This quick check today is going to be over. Can you use the centripetal acceleration equation, right? Just like we did in the beginning. All right. So go ahead and go down there by my room. Don't go outside and get ready to do some David and Goliath stuff. Let's go.